Let him laugh, let him weep, let him yell, let him sing. Only one I say. Let him lay me traps and men to pray to Jehovah, me I pray. Let him laugh, let him weep, let him yell, let him sing. Only one I say. Let him lay me traps and men to pray to Jehovah, me I pray. Let I be me instead of playing games. For chasing fame, let somebody sweat the lack of flames. No,
living my life to the fullest and shout out my halala to the fullest. Let my lungs out. I'm still rising up to greater heights as long as
Hello, Bonjour and Bonani. Welcome to Rise to Greater Heights Network, where you can turn your fears into greater success while seizing new opportunities. It is so significant to have a positive mindset, especially under these circumstances. So this network has the potential to completely revolutionize every aspect of your life and career. My name is Nompumelelo Rial Gunene, and I'm going to be your host for today. So if you're watching us online, please feel free to put in the chat box where you're watching us from and what you hope to achieve from our podcast. Today, we are surrounded by greatness in the World Wide Web. We have amazing speaker who's going to share some nuggets on human rights, and we're going to be covering Articles 26 to Articles 30. So in North Dakota, we have Tawanda Svokora. So at this moment, I'll just let our speaker to introduce himself. Go ahead, Tawanda.
Well, thank you very much, Nompumelelo. Yes, it's Tawanda Jokora, and you pronounced it as if you are a Shona-speaking person from Zimbabwe. That was very correct, Jokora, yes. And of course, I'm here in North Dakota, and I come here wearing so many hats. I'm a chief where I come from in Zimbabwe, but I'm also the MDC Alliance that is led by President Nelson Chamisa in Zimbabwe. I'm the provincial chairperson for North America province. And I'm also the founder and chairperson for a group that is here by Zimbabweans, which is called Zimbabwe Diaspora Voices. I'm a human rights defender, an activist, and I also come from the teaching profession, but I switched professions when I came here to the United States. I'm now working in the So yeah, in short, that's who I am, and I'm here to talk about, like you said, Article 26, Article 28, and Article 30 of the human rights.
Amazing. It's such a great honor to have you, Tawanda, today. Really, when you say Svokora, like to me, because I am a Nguni person, so Swati and Shona. You know that DV is part of my language, so it's so easy to just say it. So yeah, to our viewers, we have a disclaimer because today we are really discussing a very sensitive subject matter. So Rise to Greater Heights Network is only here to provide information about human rights to the public. Legal information is not the same as legal advice as to the application of the law to an individual specific circumstances. So we cannot offer legal advice in response to specific questions. We will advise that you should consult a lawyer if you need help in such. So Tawanda, I have a question for you. If you happen to have your own billboard, I can see your billboard coming up in North Dakota. What will your billboard say?
Well, interesting question. My billboard will talk about the country that is represented by the flag that is in my background. That is my beloved Zimbabwe. I love my country to bits, but there are things that I don't like about it. Like now, we are having this discussion 2 days before our independence, which is 18 April. Yeah, very significant. 1980. That's when Zimbabwe got its independence from the British. But myself, my billboard would now then read, "Not yet Uhuru," because we're not independent. if you talk to any Zimbabwean today, they will be telling you that there is no difference from what was going on during the Smith regime and now where we are being led by our fellow blacks. There is no difference. In fact, we have even become worse than we were when we were under the colonial regime. I know a lot of people will not agree with me, but with the suffering that is going on in Zimbabwe, I know at least 15 million Zimbabweans who agree with me that we are not independent. So my billboard would read, "Not yet Uhuru."
I love that. I love that. Yeah, so yeah, Tawanda is gonna be our first and last speaker because today it happened that, you know, the universe loves us. The universe was like, no, it's just gonna be you representing Zimbabwe and me representing Swaziland. Really?
Wow,
So
that's
it's
good.
just gonna be us.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Well, let's do it.
Mhm. So Tawanda Tvokora, excuse me. Tawanda Tvokora has a teaching degree and a social sciences degree. He taught in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, and briefly in the USA for a combined 15 years. He is now an oil and gas infra technician working for one of the biggest oil companies in the world. Besides his work, Mr. Tvokora is a full-time politician. He is a provincial chairperson of Zimbabwe's biggest opposition party, MDC, which is a movement for Democratic Change Alliance. He is also the chairperson of North America's Zimbabwe's Diaspora Voices. Tawanda is a human rights defender and an author. So, kings and queens, help me to welcome Tawanda Tvokora.
Well, thank you so much for that flowery introduction. I appreciate it. And I also have to acknowledge the work that you're doing in this organization. You know, human rights are our life. So for you to be talking about this and for you to also invite me to speak on your platform, I really feel honored. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be talking about Article 26, 28, and 20 and 30. And Article 26 talks about something that is dear to my heart. That is the education of young children, the education in Africa. And that's what I will focus on because I'm more well-versed with African education. And I think I'm very well qualified to talk about that, having taught in different African countries. I taught in Zimbabwe for a number of years, 5 years, and then I went to South Africa, taught in Tembisa, South Africa's biggest high-density suburb, I think after Soweto. I taught there for more than a year, and then I went to Botswana, where I stayed for a decade, 10 years teaching in Botswana. And that experience has given me a lot in terms of African education. I saw everything in Zimbabwe and I saw everything in Botswana. Article 26 talks about the right to education, right to education, and it even goes further and talks about free education, especially at primary school level. But looking at my experience in South Africa and Botswana to start with, I don't think that is being fulfilled. While I'm talking about that, let me try to share my screen here. I don't think this article is being fulfilled in all these countries. I taught in private schools in Botswana. You will find that there are public schools, yes, but most of the people in Botswana, most of the children go to private schools. And these private schools, while they have quality education, they are not affordable. Parents have to pay a leg and an arm for them to be able to send their children to school. So what about those that can't afford the high fees in those private schools. It means that they are being left out, or they are being left out to go to public schools where the quality of education is not as good as the quality of education in private schools. And the same happens to South Africa. We have a lot of private schools in South Africa, and parents also have to pay a lot of fees, a lot of high fees for them to be able to send their children to those quality schools. So I'm seeing here, I saw a situation where some children were being alienated from getting quality education. But that is South Africa, that is Botswana. And while I feel sorry for those few children who cannot get quality education, I think I actually weep for the children in Zimbabwe, because they don't even have those private schools. They don't have them, like in Botswana and South Africa. The reason why they don't have them is because they can't afford them. They can't afford the high fees that can be charged in private schools. So children in Zimbabwe have to contend with the education that is being provided in government schools. And government schools in Zimbabwe are in a deplorable state. There are no teachers, there are no resources. The teachers that are there, the remaining teachers that are in Zimbabwe, are poorly, very poorly remunerated. That you'll be shocked if I tell you the salaries that Zimbabweans are getting in South Africa, in Zimbabwe rather. A qualified teacher gets an equivalent $60 US. That is those that are remaining. The rest that were qualified in Zimbabwe are now somewhere in South Africa, in Botswana, in the diaspora. Like myself, I'm here. I'm supposed to be providing quality education to the children in Zimbabwe, but I'm not doing that because of the poor remunerations that are there and because of the poor working conditions being given to teachers. If you look at my PowerPoint here, you see the picture on your right with smiling children. That picture was taken in 1979. And that was when I was also starting my grade 1. 1970, I'm old. I can't believe I was doing grade 1 in 1979. So that picture, you see children are happy. This was during the Smith regime. If you go on internet, you will see that this is 1979 in Zimbabwe. And then you go to the other side. Those are the children under the Zimbabwean government outside, in the grounds, under the trees, no buildings. That's a Zimbabwean education for you. So that's why even in my introduction, I said, and I boldly said, and I will repeat it, that life was better and education was better during the Smith regime than where it is now, because things have just gone worse and worse. We have a 20% of the children in Zimbabwe do not have access to education. They don't have access at all, which means they're not going to school. Putting it into perspective, we are saying for 100 children that are there, at least 20 of them per every 100, they're not going to school. And if you take, for instance, we have 1 million children that are supposed to be going to schools to school in Zimbabwe. So at least 200,000 are not attending schools in Zimbabwe because they can't afford it. They want to go to school, they want to be educated, but they can't afford it. So therefore, they're being alienated. So we can see here that Zimbabwe is violating Article 26, the right to education. Children are not being given the right to a basic need that they need. Children are being denied the only basic right that can better their prospects. It is unacceptable. These children are supposed to be in school. They have a right to be in school. And the government of Zimbabwe has an obligation to be sending these children to school. or allowing them to be in school. The United Nations says children should be in school for free in their primary education when they do primary education. So because the Zimbabwean government is not providing, so 20% are being alienated. And worse to that, we have over 7,000 school children that drop out every year. 7,000 are dropping out every year because they can't afford. And for one reason or another, it could be because of their economic situation. And sometimes in the rural areas, it is because of the distances that they have to travel. We have children that have to walk for 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers for them to be able to get to school. And some of them will not be having food in their homes, and they just end up dropping out of school. And 54% of these dropouts are girls. So the girl child is being greatly disenfranchised, disadvantaged in Zimbabwe. So if you add this percentage of dropouts to the percentage, to the 20% of school children that cannot afford to go to school, the percentage become even higher. We are now looking at 23% of Zimbabweans or Zimbabwean children that are not going to school. And that is obviously being caused by the socio-economic and political problems in Zimbabwe. You can see there that this is a country in its doldrums, a country in a very sorry state. Look at the roads, look at those young children that are supposed to be in a classroom, 1979 and early 1980s, 81, 82, 83, when we carried over with the infrastructure that we inherited from the Smith regime. Things were better. Come to 1985, 86, 87, to 1990, when I was finishing my grade 7. This is what we're doing. We were now learning under the trees, and teachers had to endure, teachers and children had to endure bad weathers, the rain, the sun, and cold weathers, but they still had to teach, but outside the classrooms. That's very bad. And as a result of that, we continue to have a lot of children dropping out. You see there's Zimbabweans walking, they can't afford to get in a bus from work. So if someone can't afford to get in a bus or in a combi so that they go to work or they leave work and go back home, how are they going to afford school fees? The government should be providing school fees for free. So we see a situation where children and teachers would go in the streets and try to fight for their rights, demanding basic education, demanding that schools are made free, and even those in secondary schools, they pay nominal fees that are affordable, and those in university should also be charged less so that they can be able to afford a decent education. But what happens in Zimbabwe when students go in the streets to demand this basic right that is underpinned in Article 26? The young man that you are seeing there by the name Taku, his full name Takudzwa Ngadzwore, very sad, very, very sad. He's the Zimbabwe Students' Union, ZINASU president at the country's highest institution of learning, that is the University of Zimbabwe. He was demanding a decent education. He was demanding a decent livelihood, wages for his parents so that they could be able to pay for his fees in college. But he was abducted, beaten up by the police, not by anyone, by the police. And he was left for dead. You can see that the young man is almost dead. But what do? Instead of taking him to the hospital, some of the police officers came, grabbed him, and threw him in jail. So the young man that you are seeing behind bars is actually the one that is lying there lifeless. He was not taken to hospital. He was taken to jail. And he was thrown in jail for over 30 days without trial, without even being given an option for bail. What was his crime? To demand a decent education, decent livelihoods for Zimbabweans. This is very, very, very sad. And the other young man who is in jail again, that's Alan Moyo. Alan Moyo holds the record for a young person, not only a young person, for a Zimbabwean who was held in jail without being given an option for bail. A bail is, according to the Zimbabwean constitution, it's a basic right. Someone is supposed to be tried or supposed to go through the legal procedures outside having been given bail, because he is innocent until proven guilty. But the Zimbabwean government throws these young men in jail without giving them an option for bail. Alan Moyo stayed in prison for 76 days. That is over 2 months, without being given an option of bail. And without being given, he was sick at one time, very sick. He could not see a doctor. People who wanted to give him food, they were denied the chance to give him food, because they were saying he has to eat the food that is in the prisons, which is deplorable, and he went for those 76 days just barely eating. This is he's the Secretary General for the Zimbabwe Students' Union at the University of Zimbabwe. These young men are fighting for the right to a decent education. I'm just picking the stories here and there, but there are so many stories that we can talk about where Zimbabweans are being denied their basic human rights. That's Tawanda, my nemesis. Tawanda, young man, is from the Midlands State University. He's a journalist. He's learning to be a journalist. I think his profession has already been cut short. He was demonstrating again so that school fees could go down, college fees could go down, and the parents could afford to send him to college so that he could finish his journalism degree. But what did the government do during a demonstration that had not even started? The demonstration had not even started, but he was abducted in broad daylight in central Bulawayo and taken to a secluded farm where he was tortured, beaten up, forced to drink his own urine, eat his own feces. I'm not talking about something that is not happening. These are things that are happening in Zimbabwe. That young man went to hell and came back because the state officials, we include the Central Intelligence officers, the police, and the Army intelligence, abducted a 23-year-old young man and started beating him up because he wanted to protest. We have a right to protest. According to our constitution, section 59 of the Zimbabwean constitution gives us the right to protest. We are allowed to protest. But for that reason, Tawanda Mcheyiwa was abducted, tortured. He was even done worse things that are, I shudder to repeat here, because I know, and he said it himself, that he was also sexually assaulted while he was in that secluded area. And only after the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, he had applied and put pressure to the Zimbabwean police to release him, because they were about to take them to a higher court. Then he was dumped somewhere near his house, his uncle's house. Judus Matutu is a well-known journalist, an award-winning journalist in Zimbabwe. The young man had to crawl to get to his uncle's house because he could barely walk. As you can see, after he got to his uncle's house, he had to call for an ambulance because he was shocked how the young man had made it into the house, even though he was crawling, because he was devastated. He was, broken down. He had been beaten up, physically assaulted. Right now, Tawanda is out on hospital. He is no longer in hospital, but his kidneys were damaged for life. He can't do anything right now. And he has gone out of school. He's supposed to be finishing his degree at Midland State University. He has not been able to do that. That young lady you are seeing putting up her hand, I used to teach with her when I was teaching in Masvingo. in the rural areas of Masvingo. And I honor her, I salute her, because she's still in there. She's still teaching in Zimbabwe under those deplorable conditions. The teachers were protesting against something that I'm going to talk about, that they wanted children during COVID to be given access to education, just like those that have money, having online classes. She wanted all children to be given access to education during COVID. So, yeah, association, the Zimbabwe Rural Teachers Association, organized a demonstration, a peaceful demonstration, to urge government to do something about the poor children of Zimbabwe. Because if I may tell you, Nompumelelo, children in Zimbabwe went for a year without any education because of COVID-19. While in other countries, Zimbabwe governments were doing something for their children, for their school children. In Zimbabwe, there was nothing like that. Even though Zimbabwe received millions of dollars from the United Nations, from United States of America, from the United Kingdom, from the European Union, and from other well-wishers, no money was channeled towards education. So Zimbabwean children in Zimbabwe went for a year without education. So teachers union and school children went in the streets to protest, so that the government could do something, make use of the money that they're getting from organizations and channel it to school children instead of lining their pockets. That demonstration was ruthlessly broken down. Teachers were beaten up, young children were beaten up. This lady was arrested and stayed in jail for over 20 days, and he was convicted, found guilty of organizing that demonstration. So, but then she appealed, and now she's out. But we know that they're going to come after her and they're going to sentence her because she was already convicted. We don't know exactly what happened there, but this is one young lady who inspires me, together with many other teachers union leaders that have been jailed so many times, that have been brutalized. The president for that union has been abducted, I don't know how many times, beaten up, assaulted, and left for dead. But teachers in Zimbabwe are still fighting. As you can see from the picture on your extreme right, those are teachers that are protesting. Teachers are suffering they're crying. These are teachers that are just crying out to a government that doesn't even listen to them. In the other poster, they're saying, we can't pay fees for our kids. These are teachers that are teaching children, and the schools, like I said in the beginning, they are so overpriced. Those in government, those are public schools for that matter. They're not even private, but they are so overpriced that even teachers can't afford to pay for their own children. So how do you expect a teacher to wake up in the morning and go and start teaching when his child has been sent off? Because in Zimbabwe, if you don't pay school fees, you are sent off. Your child is sent off. You leave your child in your own home to go and teach other children. It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. So these teachers were protesting for that, but they were all arrested. They were all beaten up, and they were labeled enemies of the state by the president. And we have a video, I couldn't bring it up here. We have a video where the president was naming everyone who is protesting, who is telling the government that it's not doing right by the people. He was saying all those people need to be exterminated because they are anti-government, they are unpatriotic. He called Zimbabwe in so many names. So moving on, during the time of COVID, like I've alluded to, we saw COVID-19 being weaponized. Zimbabwe has been registered as one of those countries in the world that has taken advantage of COVID-19 to try and thwart out civic leaders and opposition leaders. But not only that, they've also weaponized COVID-19 to deny Zimbabweans of their basic human rights. You know, in Zimbabwe, I'll tell you something that is shocking. You know, when COVID came, you would see a police officer who doesn't have a mask himself arresting someone maybe simply because he's from the MDC alliance. He sees that person walking without a mask. So an unmasked police officer who arrests a person who doesn't have a mask simply because he belongs to the opposition, and that person is thrown in jail. And in that jail, the prison warders don't even have masks themselves. In that prison, I can bring you someone here, Nompumelelo, who can talk about the conditions in Zimbabwean jails. The young man is now here. He is now living here in America, but he stayed in jail for 45 days. He will tell you the story of Zimbabwean prisons, that in those prisons, there is no social distancing. There is not even a bar of soap so that the prisoners can wash their hands and sanitize themselves. There's nothing like that. There's no social distancing whatsoever. So how ironical is that someone is being arrested for not wearing a mask, for not social distancing, and for not sanitizing, and then you're thrown in a jail where there are worse conditions. People are crowded, people are crammed. You find, 30, 40 prisoners in a small room, crammed together. But you've been arrested for not social distance, for not social distancing, and for not wearing a mask. And you're thrown in a jail where none of that is being observed. So we have seen the government weaponizing COVID-19. They've shrinked the democratic space for all civic society activists, political leaders, political activists, anyone who has gone to protest, anyone like you saw those students going in to protest about their state in the state in the universities. They are arbitrarily arrested. You're just thrown in jail simply because you've gone in the streets. And the Zimbabwean government is even doing worse, contrary to what we see in Article 28 and Article 30, where we supposed to have, access to the protection of all the articles that are there from Article 1 to Article 30, because Article 28 says that in its entirety, everyone is entitled to social and international order with the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration. To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. When we are seeing this very situation, unfolding in Zimbabwe, especially during COVID-19, Zimbabweans are being denied their human rights. So essentially, our humanity is being challenged by the Zimbabwean government, and that's again very, very unacceptable. We've seen the president of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Union, our vice chairperson, young ladies, Honorable Joanna Mamombe, Netsai Marova, and others being arrested for getting in the streets to protest for the poor living conditions, for the bad and poor livelihoods that Zimbabweans are experiencing. And when all that is happening, you would think the United Nations, especially the United Nations, who are the custodians of all these articles that we are talking about, you would think they would do something about it. I'm not criticizing them per se, but I'm just saying they should do something to make sure that member countries, members of the United Nations, are abiding by these 30 articles that they've put up. We can have a situation where an organization, a respected organization, puts up all these and then it doesn't monitor them. Is it becoming a toothless barking dog that it gives out all those articles to be observed by member countries. But when member countries voluntarily don't abide by those articles, they do nothing. They don't do anything. Apart from statements, the United Nations has issued statements on the deplorable human rights situation in Zimbabwe. They know that what is going on in Zimbabwe is inhuman. They've made out statements. They've been the United Nations Special Rapporteur, whom they sent to Zimbabwe, and he made a very scathing report that was talking about massive human rights abuses by the Zimbabwean government. They have the report, they have the pictures, they have the videos, they have everything, but there's not been any action whatsoever. Do they want to see dead bodies in the streets of Harare, in the streets of Bulawayo, for them to intervene? Do they want to see the situation that is currently prevailing in Mozambique, where people are being cut off their throats? You see people being cut off and thrown in pits. You know, that's the situation that is going on in Mozambique right now. And we are seeing the United Nations, the SADC, and the AU now trying to intervene. So they want to walk over dead bodies to try and make peace in countries. Why can't they avoid the dead bodies in the first place? Why can't they get in and prevent people from being killed? You know, in Zimbabwe, we've seen 6 people being gunned down in broad daylight. I was in Harare when that happened. You know, people were being gunned down by soldiers, you know, wearing army uniforms, and they were killing people that were protesting. Those 6 bodies, they are somebody's children, they are somebody's fathers, they are somebody's parents, and they are gone. And in January 14, from between January 14, 2019 and January 24, over 23 people, Zimbabweans, were killed, some abducted by Zimbabwean security forces, simply because they were protesting against fuel increases. And nobody did anything, not even SADC, not even the African Union intervened to do something. So do they want to see thousands of Zimbabweans in the streets for them to intervene? So as a solution, as I try to wrap up, we need a unit of purpose among all opposition parties in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in Swaziland, in Uganda, you know, where we also have Yoweri Museveni, you know, who is killing people every day, abducting opposition leaders, you know, willy-nilly. We want to see these opposition parties coming together, you know, just like what they did during the War of Liberation, when we were trying to fight our way out of colonialism. We saw South Africa being held by Zimbabweans, being held by the Tanzanians, being held by the Ugandans, being held by all the frontline states that included Swaziland, Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi. They all came together and helped South Africa gain independence. The same happened with Zimbabwe. All the other countries came together and helped Zimbabwe gain independence. So I think now we need to see, you know, another shift in the way we do opposition politics in Africa. Let's have some kind of Pan-Africanism, all opposition parties coming together. My dream is to see another United Nations, if we can come up with something like that, another United Nations, you know, of opposition parties that come together, exchange ideas, have a synergy of strategies. You know, you can imagine an opposition party, the MDC Alliance, having a synergy of ideas or exchanging strategies with the opposition party in Canada or in America. You know, you will learn a lot. And all those in Africa trying to learn from what is happening in South Africa right now. That's I think that's the direction we should be taking. You know, imagine another United Nations of opposition parties being led by Malema, you know, Nelson Chamisa, and other opposition leaders out there. They know what they are going through. They know the people that follow them, what they are going through. and they've learned from these dictators that are in Africa. And I think they'll actually do better, and they'll be able to propose better ideas to the rest of the world, so that the world can come in, intervene, and save the situation, especially those of Africans, Zimbabweans in particular. But as I conclude, I just want the world to know that in Zimbabwe, we have a government that has stopped caring about school children, that has stopped caring about its own people. Children who are not supposed to be going to school are not going to school. And worse, during COVID-19, Zimbabwean school children went for a year without any education, without getting into any classroom, and the government did not come up with any intervention whatsoever, despite it receiving millions and millions of dollars from donors, from world organizations, and other well-wishers. And that's very deplorable. And I hope someone is listening and they intervene in the Zimbabwean situation, because the arbitrary arrests are still going on, the abductions are still going on, the unsanctioned killings of opposition members are still going on, and this is still ongoing. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my goodness, Tawanda, thank you. You've just brought my spirit very down on what's really happening down there in Zimbabwe. Really, I believe that the world is watching and something really, really needs to be done. The deplorable schools infrastructure and lack of resources in Zimbabwe really, it's really, really heartbreaking. Thank you, Tawanda, for bringing such insights on Zimbabwe. And I know many people are not even aware what's happening in Zimbabwe, but thank you for bringing it up. And you've mentioned the fate of the international organizations to enforce human rights in the world. It's so funny because last week I was actually talking on the ZANU-PF, the way they launched a campaign of violence against the NDC, killing human rights defenders and all the arrests. Really, it's really not worth it when people come together in a peaceful gathering for a positive Zimbabwe that we really want to see. It's really, really bad. It's heartbreaking. Thank you, Tawanda. I'm just going to stop your screen from sharing.
Yes.
Oh, can you stop it on your end?
I can.
Yeah, it
do
doesn't.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tawanda. I'm just gonna put us back here. Yeah, thank you, Tawanda. So to our viewers online, please feel free, if you have any questions for Tawanda, just post them on the chat box, and then we're gonna attend to your questions at the end of the podcast. So I'm gonna be the next speaker. I'm like, my heart is bleeding. My heart is bleeding for Zimbabwe. I'm praying for Zimbabwe. I'm praying for the change that I want to see in this world. Zimbabwe needs us. Zimbabwe needs more human rights to consultants, defenders, activists, analysts to come together and say, we want the Zimbabwe that we really want in this world. And I believe like many countries, even my country too, when it comes to education being a priority to kids, they've gone for a year without any update from the government. And it's really, like, it breaks my heart how other governments operate out there. But I believe that the change that we really want to see, we're gonna see it sooner than later.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. Thank you, my brother. I'm gonna be the next speaker, so I'm just gonna play my bio before I speak. So here's my bio.
Non-Pumelelo Real Kunene is a highly sought-after, energetic, certified Les Brown international speaker. She is the author and host to Rise to Greater Heights, a book and YouTube channel to turn your fears into greater success while seizing new opportunities. Real is also a coach, mentor, and an MC, well known for encouraging many to rise from mediocrity into greatness. Her vision is not only to motivate, but also to empower audiences with a fresh perspective inspiration they require to pursue success and drive sustainable outcomes in a seriously funny way. Rial believes that we are in full control of our choices. Her mission is to meet the needs and transform lives of her clients and her audience. Rial's book, Rise to Greater Heights, has inspired and empowered many to pursue their personal and professional passion to become go-getters. Her goal is to study your current situation, identify limiting beliefs, then design a plan of inspired action to empower you to achieve specific outcomes in your life. Rial Kunene wears many hats as a professional certified sales manager, CEO, strategist, certified travel counselor, trainer, esthetician, philanthropist, diplomacy protocol officer, international human rights analyst, and a commissioner for OAS. Following her dreams gave her purpose to see her goals through and understand that she does have everything she needs to reach her full potential. Her everyday message is that your journey to be a better person starts with you. So knowing who you are to your core will make you understand that you are the only one who can accomplish your dreams. Hebrews 11, Psalm 27 and 40. Keep her to rise to greater heights. Kings and queens, please join me. Welcome, Rial Kunene!
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Once again, thank you so much, Tonda, for sharing more insights on the role being played by the United Nations on human rights. But sadly, of course, many countries abuse the rights. Like you mentioned, the abuse of women, youth, and also those who criticize the government, that they become victims, more especially like in Zimbabwe and Uganda. This is really, really sad. So thank you, Tawanda. So good people, you really don't have to be politically involved to know about your human rights. All human beings are all entitled to their human rights, and you can never, ever be excluded from them. So it's high time. Get to know your human rights. As flight attendants always say that, put on your oxygen mask first before you assist others, because if you don't, you and the other person you're trying to help could possibly go down. So this is the right time. This is the right time to get to know your human rights. And today we're going to be covering articles 25 to 30, like Tawana has already covered. So I'm just going to be more like summarizing everything, and then also adding some nuggets on those rights that he didn't cover. So before I continue, I just want to double check if I'm in the right platform here. How many of you have dreams and goals maybe that you want to achieve in the next 6 months? I want you, as you think about your dreams and goals, to put this down. Rise to greater heights. Rise to greater heights, because you need to be clear about your career goals in order for you to gain guidance on professional development. And many of you may be asking themselves, what are human rights really? I've heard many people talking about them. I've heard about these articles, but I am not too sure what are human rights. Like I can't just go out there and tell the world exactly what are human rights. So human rights really are the fundamental rights and freedoms that are inherent to all human beings. Like you were born with it, it's God-given, regardless of gender, nationality, place of residence, sex, ethnicity, religion, and your skin color. You have this right. You were born with it, and you're gonna die with it. And human rights are not just about the law, so they are non-discriminatory, meaning that all human beings are entitled to them. It's not like the government is going to give you the rights. You were born with it. So you should understand that you have 30 rights that you are supposed to live with and die with. They are all yours. They're all yours. Like, to me, honestly, it was the death of George Floyd that made me to realize that we need to stand for a world where no one shall live in fear because of their skin color, and where the criminal justice system treats everyone fairly and equally. Last year, I remember very well, on May 25th, George Floyd died in police custody in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This 46-year-old Black man, he was arrested and killed after a convenience store employee called 911 with Floyd's suspicion of passing a counterfeit $20 bill. The video that was captured by a bystander shows George Floyd pinned face down on the ground and in handcuffs, and one of the police officers kneeling on his neck as he pleaded for help. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And finally, he fell silent. May his soul rest in eternal peace. It is really, really so impossible not to be outraged watching that video of the Minneapolis officer pressing his knee against Floyd's neck for a period initially reported to be 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I believe that everyone is born free and has the right of life. So no one should ever be subject to such unjustified violence. Hence, I'm here today to educate everyone about their human rights. Good people, this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call. But when the alarm clock goes off, please, please, don't ever hit the snooze button. Don't be like, I will wake up in the next 2 minutes. I will wake up in the next 2 minutes. You know what? Forever is a long time. Why don't you wake up, get going, and know your human rights? Know your human rights. In Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it covers a wide range of rights, including the right to survive and to live free of reasonable, preventable suffering. The essential point is that everyone shall be able to be a full participant in ordinary, everyday interaction with other people, as well as social protection covering situations beyond one's control, such as disability, widowhood, unemployment, and old age. They are all covered in this. The right to adequate health operates directly or indirectly as a prerequisite to all other human rights recognized in the treaties. However, in this article, it doesn't settle the issue since it's not clear whether the highest attainable standard should be assessed with respect to the economic infrastructure of a single nation or with the respect of the global community. Article 25 contends that states must also take action to ensure that all citizens enjoy an adequate standard of living. However, when you look at the World Health Organization estimate, it says that 1.7 million people die annually in developing countries from diseases resulting from unclean water and inadequate sanitation. These people continue to suffer from chronic hunger and disproportionately from diseases that are routinely preventable or curable in developed nations. The right to an adequate standard of living requires that all people are entitled to have the physical needs of their bodies satisfied. And the idea that everyone shall enjoy the necessary subsistence rights is at the heart of the human rights movement. You know, I so wish you can just tell yourself that, you know what, since Tawanda had shared all this information about Zimbabwe and how the human rights have been violated, how can I make a difference now? How can I make a difference to those around me, to those like who look at me as an inspiration? But in order for you to make that difference, you've got to be hungry. You'll have to have the hunger within you. You'll have to be hungry like the hungry lion in the jungle. Honestly, that hungry lion in the jungle, it doesn't matter what kind of animal comes this way. It doesn't matter if you're a giant elephant or that small squirrel by the jungle. All that hungry lion sees in front of his face is lunch to that lion. And it's so funny because even with elephants, when they see a lion, what they do is that they run. It's all about the mindset. Once you believe, you become. They already told themselves that I am a lunch to that lion. So each and every time when I see a lion, I'll have to run. So I believe that's the mindset that we need in order for us to make a difference in this world. In order for this world to be a better place to stay, we'll have to make a difference. We really have to make a difference. Like Tawanda mentioned, that education is one of the most powerful tools. This is one of the most powerful tools in lifting marginalized groups out of poverty. The right to education is legally guaranteed for all without any discrimination. And states should promote the establishment of independent national human rights institutions that have a mandate for human rights education. Like Tawana mentioned, that education takes on the status of human rights because it promotes the full development of the human personality, really. But according to UNESCO Institute of Statistics, it says that roughly 258 million children and youth were out of school in 2018. And this represents 1/6 of the global population of the school age group, which is 6 to 17 years. And while the numbers appears to have dropped from the 262 million in 2017, Most of this reduction reflects a methodological change in the way indicators are calculated of the number and rate of out-of-school children. Really, education is not a privilege. Like I've mentioned, education is one of the human rights that we need. Education is the very prerequisite for the individual to function fully as a human being in modern society. Education is intrinsically valuable to ensure that all individuals are aware of their rights. And this is really something that we really have to be like talking about, spreading all the information about human rights, because really you don't have to see the whole staircase. You'll have to take the first step to get to the top. And as my mentor always say, that you don't have to be great to get started, but you'll have to get started to become great in life. I believe that this is the time to get started in order for us to become great. Spread the knowledge, share more knowledge about human rights to individuals out there. To those individuals who doesn't have access, like to get more information on human rights, you'll have to share the knowledge. In Article 27, it mentions the protection and promotion of culture. The protection and promotion of culture is a human rights imperative and can be defined as the right of access to participation in and enjoyment of culture. The right to take part in cultural life includes the right of individuals and communities to maintain and develop cultural heritage and cultural expressions. The way we're born, live, and die is really affected by the culture that we belong to. So culture is cultures are precious and central to our identity. Other human rights, such as the right to freedom of expression, are the key to the realization of cultural rights. In Canada, for example, human rights are protected by federal, provincial, and territorial laws, and many human rights institutions have mandates which include public education about human rights. Promoting human rights is key to developing a culture where everyone can play a part, and Canada's human rights laws stems from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Canadian Human Rights Commission is meant to protect the core principle of equal opportunity, where everyone has to feel that they are an important part of the community. And the Commission is mandated under the Canadian Human Rights Act to make recommendations that promote human rights during situations of tension and raise awareness. It was Nelson Mandela who once said that to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. Trust me, this message really, it said something within me. So in Article 28 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it calls for the establishment of social and international order that must be a just and a peaceful one. A social and international order in which the rights guaranteed by the UDHR can be fully realized was simultaneously filled with optimism, yet overshadowed by the preceding 30 years of disaster, which is the Great Depression and the two world wars. Peace requires economic and social justice development policies that avoid destruction of the environment and international respect to the rule of law. In the view of the drafters of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the order that will be needed for this purpose must be a peaceful one for respect for human rights. Like my everyday book says that, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. We are all called to make a difference in this world, good people. We are all called to make a difference in this world. So far, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights reminds us that individuals have not only rights, but also duties to other people, and we should protect their rights and freedoms. Now, Article 29 says that the corollary of rights is duties, and that limitations on rights not only may, but also must be drawn. However, since the UDHR does not list the duties of individuals, it could seem that The parent organization somewhat self-righteously takes the opportunity to claim priority for its own purposes, because there is no such thing as human duties in the same way that we have human rights. So according to my understanding, Article 29 really, it came to be located at the end of the declaration instead of being at the beginning of the declaration, because it has the interest of the world community, and the interests of the world community are not unlimited. So good people, always seek passion, try by all means to get familiar with human rights, get to know them, get to know what human rights may be. Like if someone stops me, I should know exactly what human rights can be violated if someone just stops me and asks me questions that are not really needed for the general public. Know about your human rights. It will save a nation by doing so. It's so funny how my mom and dad gave me this beautiful name, Nompumelelo. Nompumelelo in my own language, it means mother of success. So now you can really see that I am really challenged to chase after success, make a difference, be the change that I want to see in this world. In Article 30, in the exercise of the rights enunciated in the present declaration, Article 30 is about managing different roles, interests, and priorities. The exercise of the rights set forth in this declaration shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by the law. And it's about checking predatory behavior and enabling people to take action on their own behalf. Human rights and fundamental freedoms of all shall be respected, and this rule makes the human rights formula functional. And to ensure this, business enterprises must be proactive and preventative, so long as they don't infringe upon human rights along the way. Business enterprises can expand, grow, and gather profits, but governments are to guide and reinforce these efforts through regulation and enforcement. This is an article that simultaneously restricts, enables, and facilitates, thus the provisions set forth in this declaration shall be interpreted in accordance with the principles of justice and good faith. So good people, I would like to encourage you to get to know your human rights. Get to know them. All 30 human rights, you are born with them. Get to be familiar with them. Spread the knowledge. The more we share the knowledge, just pass it on to another person. You may never know. You're gonna save the world, but just by sharing a message to an individual who wasn't aware of what's happening around human rights, really. It's so funny, when I was in the 8th grade, I was nicknamed Phoenix. I was nicknamed Phoenix after writing a composition using the idiomatic expression that says, I rose from the ashes like a phoenix bird, meaning I became successful again. It's like that English teacher, really, she didn't know that nickname Phoenix, it resonates with me. And it also aligns with my destiny. So for those of you who doesn't know the phoenix bird is a Greek mythological bird believed to rise from its own ashes after being buried like hundreds of years ago. This immortal creature acquires new life by rising from the ashes of its own ancestor, which represents our capacity for vision and success. So I just want to encourage you, if you're watching this, when your world comes crashing down, wear your scars and show how a phoenix feels like to die from inside, and trust in your own capability to rise from your own ashes. Since the phoenix has to die first, burn, experience pain before resurrection from its own ashes. Please write this down in conclusion. Resilience to greatness. Resilience to greatness. If I can be honest with you, I don't know what goals you have for the next 6 months. And I don't know what dreams you have for your future. But here's one thing I know about you. You are destined for greatness. Inside of you, God has put seeds of excellence. Those seeds are supposed to grow and flourish. But many people have become crippled by their past encounters. And some have stepped over other people to get to the top. But I believe that God has a better plan for every one of us. Your objective is what you were designed for and the reason why you live today. With God, I believe that we're all destined for greatness as long as we follow His strategy. This is when the growth commences, because discovering gifts and following God's idea will make you understand that you have everything around you to reach to your full potential. My everyday inspiration, Mr. Les Brown, he once said, If you had to die today, at this very moment, at this hour, what dreams, what ideas, what visions, what goals, what talents, what skills, and what books will die with you? And he also continued that the richest place on this planet is the cemetery, because that's where all the dreams, all the visions, all the goals, all the skills, all the talents have been buried. Honestly, I don't know about you, but with me, listening to this message, it really, really gave me sleepless nights. And I am really, really proud today to introduce Rise to Greater Heights book before you. This book is a comprehensive guide to turn your fears into greater success while seizing your opportunities. It is so significant for people to have a positive mindset, especially under this COVID-19 pandemic. So this book has the potential to completely revolutionize every aspect of your life and career. And you can get this book for a family member or your loved one who needs that inspiration to face the world with a positive mindset. And by the way, the legend himself, Mr. Les Brown, he wrote a foreword in this book. And I am really, really humbled by that. And you'll be able to explore leadership, empowerment, being purpose-driven, mentorship, coaching, resilience to greatness, emotional intelligence, mental health, and many, many more topics, including spiritual growth. And I also have a free transformation guide. It's available on my website, www.risetogreaterheights.com. You know, growing up, really, I didn't have much because my father decided to have an early departure from this planet Earth. But I had everything because of my mama's love. And I love you so much, Mom. So I think whosoever said that the sky is the limit was wrong. From today on, I, Nampumelelo, Riel, Kunene, believe that the sky is our point of view. So let's all rise to greater heights. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tawanda, for being with me today. So at this moment, please feel free to share your final thoughts on human rights as you've covered Articles 26, 28, and 30, if I'm not mistaken. So please feel free to share your final thoughts in any of those human rights to our viewers online.
Well, thank you very much, for your uplifting message. I was writing notes. Yeah, and I would like to read your book, and explore more about rising to greater heights, and how I can rise from my own ashes. That's a powerful message you're delivering. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And as you rightly pointed out, we need to know about our rights. Most people don't even know what they stand for and what their rights are. And that's the reason why Africa is where it is today, that our rights are trampled upon by these dictators, and we don't do anything about it. We don't even see anything wrong about it to a certain extent. So we need to educate ourselves, and we need to make ourselves aware of the rights that we have and the power that we have as a people, because we are the ones who cultivate this culture of dictatorship that we have in Africa. We just need to believe in ourselves and tell ourselves that we, the people, have the power. And it is us, only us, that are going to stop what is going on in Africa right now. And we can do that by coming together as Africans and coming together as Zimbabweans, as South Africans, as Zambians, and just stamp our authority and say, we can't accept this. People are dying in Zimbabwe. People are suffering in Zimbabwe. We say Zimbabwe today is one of the poorest countries, but Zimbabwe is not really poor. Zimbabwe is endowed with a lot of natural resources. We have gold, we have diamonds, we have everything that we need. We have land, productive land that can change Zimbabwe in any day. But it is because of these human rights abusers that instead of doing right by God, doing right by the articles that they are signatories to. They decide not to do that. They decide to take away people's rights, take away people's livelihoods, line up their pockets, make themselves multi-millionaires at the expense of the suffering majority. And as human beings, we need to say no to that. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Tawanda. Thank you. You know, really, I was in Zimbabwe. I think, let me put I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I was in Zimbabwe, I think back in 2014, and I saw that Zimbabwe is really rich. And if you look at the education in Africa, Zimbabwe is really leading. So we need a world of wisdom, and Zimbabwe is one of those worlds. Zimbabwe is rich, like you mentioned, that Zimbabwe has all their resources. So
Yes.
what is really, really lacking when it comes to Zimbabwe? Do you mind like to share more information on on how the ZANU PF was just against the MDC? Do you have a moment, like if you can share on that one?
Yes, I mean, in particular, the ZANU-PF government has just been trying to destroy the MDC alliance, to destroy the opposition party, the biggest opposition party in Zimbabwe. And of particular note, they've unshamedly taken advantage of COVID-19 to try and do that. Where people were not allowed to go to work, the Zimbabwean government, the ZANU-PF party, decided to open the courts so that they can allow a judgment to be given against the MDC alliance. And that judgment, they knew that if they had not done it during COVID-19 time, the people would have protested. The people would have objected to what they were doing. But they decided to take advantage of COVID-19 and issue that demonic judgment during COVID-19 when people were not allowed to go in the streets. And that judgment took away members of parliament of the MDC alliance. I've never seen anything like that happening anywhere in the world, that 85 members of parliament were voted in by the people, and then someone just comes from Norway and claims those people and says these people belong to our political party, and a government, a court that is obviously supporting the government and aided by the government, supports something like that. And now, to date, the MDC alliance has lost about 35 members of parliament and an equal number of councillors that were voted in by the people. You know, people voted, but another political party just came and started claiming those people. It's absurd. It has never been seen before. We lost our headquarters that was in the center of Harare because of that judgment. We also lost a lot of money, millions that are coming from Zimbabwean taxpayers that is meant for the MDC alliance. So you can see here a concerted effort by a government, by the ZANU-PF political party, to try and disenfranchise millions of Zimbabweans that voted in the 2018 elections, by trying to destroy the MDC alliance. And that's very, very unfortunate.
Wow. The comments I'm getting on YouTube, really, they're like, people they are just heartbroken. They are really, really heartbroken. Mariah is saying that what is really happening in Zimbabwe is really, really heartbreaking. And Broken Silence is saying that, Amen, like we're praying for you, Zimbabwe. Anyways, thank you so much, Tawanda, for being.
Yeah, we need everyone's prayers. We need all the prayers, divine intervention right now. That's what we need, because it's getting worse and worse.
Yeah. I'm with you right there. I'm with you. But one day we'll have the Zimbabwe that we envisioned like long time ago. It's gonna get back to the normal old, embrace the change.
Yes. And like Nelson Mandela says, it always looks impossible until it is done. Right now, it looks very impossible for Zimbabweans to get the Zimbabwe that they want. But I can assure all Zimbabweans that are watching that it is possible. We are going to get the Zimbabwe that we want very soon.
No, it's possible. It's possible. I believe that. I believe that. So, to our viewers online, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Tawanda, for being with us, like sparing that moment with us, like to get to know more about Zimbabwe, because I believe that not all of us are aware on who Zimbabwe is, what Zimbabwe is for. But today we have you. You are such a pro, and you've shared the nuggets that we really, really wanted to know about Zimbabwe. So thank you, Tawanda, for taking your time with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me this platform. And again, thank you for all the good work that you are doing, talking about human rights. We don't have many like you. So thank you for the good work.
Oh, thank you, my brother. I will take that as a compliment, and I am
It
very
is.
honored.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, to all of you online, thank you so much for joining us today at Rise to Greater Heights Network, where you can turn your fears into greater success while seizing new opportunities. I hope you've been inspired, motivated, and ready to rise to greater heights. So, please do join us next week at the same time, same place. Thank you. Merci. Siyabonga.
Let him laugh, let him weep, let him yell, let him sing. All they wanna say. Let him lay me traps and men to pray to Jehovah, me I pray. Let him laugh, let him weep, let him yell, let him sing. All they wanna say. Let him lay me traps and men to pray to Jehovah, me I pray. Let I be me instead of playing games. For chasing fame, let somebody sweat the lack of flames. No,
Living my life to the fullest and shout out my halala to the fullest. Let my lungs out. I'm still rising up to greater